evening, everyone, and welcome to our penultimate event for International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day. And I'm delighted to be with Dianna Morikawa, and she is the North American Sales Executive at Sensegura. She's a veteran of the computer and network security industry. She's dedicated to helping businesses reduce risks and consequences of a cybersecurity breach. And after 2 decades working with leading IT and network security providers, she now applies her experience and insights to help small and mid-sized businesses take a holistic approach to reducing their cybersecurity risk. Welcome, Dianna. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on this session today. And I'm going to jump straight in to the questions that we've got. So, how do you think that imposter syndrome has impacted on your career? And perhaps just tell us a little bit about your background and any instances where imposter syndrome has affected you.
Sure, definitely. Thank you for having me today, Lisa. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on this topic. I think I felt like the peak of the imposter syndrome when I had left the biotech industry and came to the high-tech industry. As you can imagine, going from one industry where you have to get a piece of paper saying that you're qualified and you've gone through the courses, to be proficient to do a specific job and career path, and going into cybersecurity where it's not the same. And I felt that imposter syndrome at that point pretty loudly because I felt like I didn't belong. I did not earn the place at the table. I didn't have a piece of paper saying that I'm qualified to even be in that field. So I really felt that from the very beginning when I came in.
I think we can all relate to that, of not feeling that we've got that place on the table and not feeling like we're good enough to be able to contribute. So just moving on from that a bit, have you experienced not being treated equally in the workplace or fairly in the workplace? And if so, how?
Yeah, most definitely. I think one of the things that I've learned is the fact that, and I've been told this many times in many industries, in biotech as well as high tech, and many different bosses. It's like, well, I'm not going to reward you more because of my set expectations of you is higher than everyone else's. So I've always thought that was really unfair. And I felt like, wait, so I'm doing way more, I'm contributing more, I'm providing more, I'm doing more work, but because you have a lower expectation from my counterpart, that it basically we're considered equals just because of your assigned expectations of me that happens to be higher. So that's always been something that I've seen time and time again, which I felt like was extremely unfair because in a way, you're setting expectations that it reaches a point of not being obtainable. So you're being set up for failure. And it kind of goes back into that vicious cycle where it's like, well, maybe I don't deserve to be here because of the high bar that you keep setting and you keep upping and upping and upping. And this is something that happens a lot in terms of individual contributor roles and with goals and quotas and things like that, because you feel like they keep upping it to find your failure point. And you reach a point where you feel like maybe it's not for me. But then when you look around and you realize that your goals are very different, vastly different than your teammates, and you realize that you are being treated unfairly.
Definitely, and I've certainly had some experience of that as well. Do you think that imposter syndrome then is a direct result of not being treated fairly in the workplace?
I think in the beginning it can be, and it becomes a point of self-awareness and really looking around, because I think in our roles we tend to focus within ourselves and try to focus on the goal, the carrot that's in front of us, and we don't really think about, oh wait, what is everyone else, what everyone else's race and targets are, right? And so you reach a point where it's like you look around and it's like, wait, why is my racetrack different from everyone else's? But before that happens, before you stop and look around, you're so focused and you feel a point where it's like, well, this is not happening. I'm not accomplishing what's been set for me. And you still feel that that feeling of insecurity, the fact that what was set for you, as unrealistic as it may be, and you can't obtain that goal, is the most frustrating thing. You start having self-doubt, and you start wondering, should I be here? Did I earn this place in the table? Do I leave? Do I give this spot to someone else that can do better?
Absolutely. And how do you think that we can help others to understand that their value to society is not determined by their career or job?
Yeah, I think a lot of times people kind of identify who they are by their roles and their jobs and their careers. And, I've been in industries with doctors where people assume that they deserve this higher point in society, but they could have like the worst bedside manner, so to speak. And they're really not doing it for the goodness of, well-being for others, but it's more for prestige or power, whatever it may be. And then you have someone else that may be in a entry level position that's been stuck there for many, many years, and it's just a cog in a wheel in a machine, but yet they do other things outside of their 40 hours a week. They could be volunteering at animal shelters or spending time at nursing homes, but really making a difference in terms of what feeds their soul. And I feel that a lot of people should not identify themselves based on what they do for money to survive. It's mostly about their passions in their world and other things that they could contribute to as well.
Absolutely. And coming on to something that, as you know, is a subject and a topic that is very close to my heart. Something that I've experienced a lot as a woman in the cybersecurity industry. Do you think that being bullied and abused in the workplace contributes to feelings of imposter syndrome? And how big a problem do you think that this is?
It is a major problem. I've been bullied. I've been bullied by superiors. I've been bullied by other women in this industry. It's always that competitiveness. It's always that I've been told I don't know what to do with you. And so it's like it's my fault, right? So I've always been either left alone or targeted. So it's very rare for me to find a boss that actually understands my strengths, takes the time to see where I want to be, and really nurture that. And I'm really fortunate at this time in my life to find that special boss that I can be open with and talk about, what makes me happy and what my goals are in terms of not being stagnant in a position, or trying to do more things or have more responsibilities or change direction or whatever it may be, and listen to the frustrations that I may have. So I feel like you really need to have that advocate. And a lot of it is when you interview for a position. And I've done this before, where I try to not boil the ocean, so to speak, and not look at a company as a whole, but look at who I'm going to be reporting to. That's going to be your advocate. Unfortunately, in our space, is extremely dynamic and is a revolving door. So who hires me and who I report to is not guaranteed, 3 months, 6 months down the line. And the chemistry may not be there. And that's always a challenge, because we are in a very, very volatile, dynamic, industry. Let's be honest about that. And when people talk about all the layoffs in our tech industry, that's been going on. It's just never been as vocal. It's never been brought to light. But it is something that you can't bank on. Unfortunately, you can't say, I'm going to go work and take this position with this person because I trust that person, or I have a good working relationship and dynamic with that person, and find out that that person's gone. And then you're left with someone that's extremely toxic. And that's happened to me before. And I've been told, after being cut from a position, that these were exact words, and this has happened like over 20 years ago. And this was said to the rest of the teammates that survived. It's like, the reason why she was cut and not you guys, even though she did all the deals and you guys didn't, is because she was there longer and was influenced by the predecessor that I did not like. So it was never my work. It was always politics or something else. So my advice is to really work in a non-toxic environment. Try to find that. So it's a huge balance, trying to find a company that has an excellent culture, excellent products, and you can see yourself being there for many, many years, or even retiring. But having that magic combination is just so important.
I absolutely agree with that. And again, you know yourself, I've been in organisations that it started off great. The people I've worked with have been great, and it's taken just one other person to come
Hmm.
in that's so toxic and changes that dynamic within the team
Yeah.
immensely. And I've left positions because of that. I've gone to HR, I've spoken to them about my concerns and so on. And I'm just told it's not me. It's, you know, I'm imagining it, or it's just, or they don't want to see it. It's just not there. So I've left organisations for that in the
Yeah,
past.
or what I've
Yeah.
seen is like, we're not going to do anything because the person that's attacking you or bullying you has some sort of financial contribution to the company that's greater than yours, or
Mm,
some political positioning. So it's like, then why are you here?
yeah.
HR, seriously, if you're not here to create a culture of teamwork where everyone is safe and can show up and have it a merit-based system, then you shouldn't be doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. And just taking that a step further from my own experience, I've done a lot, and I do mean a lot of research into narcissistic personalities in all areas of life. And I can now spot them within a workplace situation a mile away. And I often get asked, you know, how can you deal with if you've got a narcissist or a narcissistic personality that's, you know, within your team that's causing this amount of havoc? And I often get asked, what can you do about it? I'm afraid to say the only bit of advice I can give is get another job and leave, because they will not change, they
Yeah.
will not adapt, they will not take criticism well, they will not change their behavior or the way they are in any way, shape, or form. And so the only piece of advice that I can give is get out of that environment by way of finding another role, or moving on as soon as you possibly can. It's just not worth being in that kind of highly toxic environment, when that one person is just comes in and completely ruins it for everyone else. Moving on a bit, just in terms of doubts, because we all have them, and we're all, you know, second guessing ourselves a lot of the time. You know, did I do that right? Was that piece of work okay? Did I say this okay? Did I contribute, you know, to this? So how can you turn those doubts into motivation to help you expand your knowledge and experience?
For me, when I came in, my education enabled me to be a researcher. So for me, knowledge is so important in continuous education. And in the cybersecurity field, there is no lack of opportunity for continuous education and continuous growth. So for me, I started researching a lot and basically learning about cybersecurity as a whole, little niches, different categories, hardware, software, network, endpoints, everything, because um, you cannot be a security person if you only know one thing. Because, let's say, for example, your specialty may be anti-spam, but then the spam will be one component of an entry point to someone's network. So I feel like if you feel that you're not good enough, go better yourself. You're not in the beginning, and that was one of the things that I learned from the very beginning. And I was super frustrated. It's like, you're not teaching me. You're not teaching me. And I realized one day, it's like, I can teach myself. My growth and my knowledge is not limited to what someone is going to allow me to know. So I started taking online courses. I started doing my own research, reading a lot of books. And it's something that is self-enrichment, and you can provide value and insight, because I'm reached a point where I could walk into a room and not feel intimidated, and not feel like I don't have anything to contribute or say about something, because I'm always reading, and now there's always new topics coming up. You go on LinkedIn in the security space, there's always something to talk about. It's like, hey, this happened. What are your thoughts on this latest breach? Do you think it was X, Y, or Z? What can we do better? Do we think about closing that gap before? So it really teaches you problem solving skills, because the more components that you learn about, the more tools that you have to really address it. So my suggestion is, see what that educational path leads you to. It might be a different passion. It might be a very specific niche in the industry. It could be encryption. It could be storage. It could be cloud, So there's a lot that you can explore. So find out what really feeds your soul, what you're passionate about, what you're interested in, and kind of be that subject matter expert in that one division if you want.
Absolutely. And of course, there's the saying, find a job that you love and you'll never have to work a day in your life. And that's absolutely, so true
Yep.
when it comes to that.
It's unfortunate we can't get paid for just spending time with our dogs.
This is it. If somebody could pay me a really, really good salary to just do whatever with Poppy all day, every day, I'd be there. But
exactly.
Sadly, I work to keep her in dog cookies. So there you go.
Same here. We work for our dogs.
We do. We absolutely do. Moving on now to something that is a topic and subject that is also really close to my heart, and something that you and I have actually been talking about quite a bit in the last few days. Do you think things have improved when it comes to misogyny, especially within the IT and cybersecurity space, and being from a minority background, or is there still a long way to go for true equity to be achieved?
The perspective changes for me. On one hand, I really can't say as a whole the industry is doing better. I am in a very, diverse and inclusive space right now. So I'm extremely happy that, my voice means something. My ideas and my inputs are being listened to. But, I've been on reading a lot of posts on Facebook and LinkedIn, and just hearing about women in cybersecurity or women in ancillary professions that are in the tech industry. And, I learned a couple years ago about how, there was a hierarchy in terms of not just a glass ceiling for women, but there is a bamboo ceiling for Asians as well. And how there's a bamboo ceiling for Asian men that's lower than others, and how the Asian female bamboo ceiling is even lower. And it's frustrating because, you start questioning, it's like, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not getting the promotion? Why am I not getting the opportunity for growth? And then you start thinking about, my contribution versus someone else's. And I think a lot of it is step out of yourself for a moment and look at things objectively. Were you really qualified to do that role? What have you shown? And I've actually went after positions that my ideas and my projects were being implemented and brought back to me to train me to do when they were my designs. So it reaches a point where it is that feedback loop when you realize it's not me, because if my idea is good enough, but yet that position was not good enough, and I happen to be a minority Asian female, what does that say? Is it really me? Or is it just you just want my work but just not what I look like? And that's always been something that I feel like is a challenge from many years. And do I see that it's changed? Every time I think that it has, and I read a post and I realize it hasn't. We still have a long ways to go. There's still a lot of women that are trying to get into our industry, even though there's a lot of programs out there, like Carmen Marsh has a program really supporting women in our industry. But in the day, when you're that one minority female in a group of men still, and you're looked at as an outsider, like someone doesn't belong and you're not good enough because of the gender that you happen to be, it's disheartening, because I've mentored a couple of women in this industry, and they go in and they tell me how toxic it is for them and how they're being treated differently and unfairly. And my advice to all of them was, don't pay attention to what they're trying to do and focus on gaining as much certificates as you can, grow and become a valued member and contribute. And then when you just go in, get what you need and get out, get the experience, earn the time and then go on to something better. Because when you're starting out, sometimes it's just one of the things that you have to go through and tolerate just to get the experience that you need to move on to a better position.
Absolutely. And we've talked about this in the last few days as well. And I think it's getting to more difficult to spot, for want of a phrase, to spot the perpetrators. There are a lot out there that say that they're allies, that they support women in the industry, that they have a public persona, if you like, of trying to do that. So on the surface, somebody could look at it and think, oh, that this person's great because they're really supportive of women in the industry. They're supportive of people from different backgrounds, etc. And then you hear about stuff and women come forward to say, actually, I've been targeted by that individual. And you can't then say anything. You can't post it on social media. You want to be able to sort of share as a sort of warning point, and you can't.
But the funny thing is, it's like, aren't they the ones that have the imposter syndromes?
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, they're the one that's faking it and pretending to be allies. They're the ones that's faking to be a supporter, when in fact they're part of the oppression. They're part of the toxicity. And so it's like they should be the ones feeling the imposter syndrome, not us, the ones that are doing our best, contributing and trying to make things better. And I feel like, especially in our industry, where I got in because altruistic reasons. I wanted to basically help, basically help companies with data, help with people in terms of not being victims and everything else. And I'm finding in our industry, there's a lot of people that's in it for the wrong reasons. And they're there for money, for power, or because they happen to be drinking buddies with, someone else, and they bring him in as a C-level. And it just creates a really toxic environment where it's the bro culture, or it's something that is not based on merit, and they're destroying companies, not just on the financial level, but also on the cultural level as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. And earlier today, I was on a panel discussion with Dr. Juliet Lindell, who said during this discussion, and I absolutely, totally get this, she said, the irony, narcissists are the biggest imposters. They really, really are. But yet, I don't think they see it. I don't think they truly can look inside themselves enough to see it or to address it or to do anything, about their behavior in the workplace. And that's why, going back to what I said earlier, the only bit of advice I've got, if you're in the firing line with one of these individuals, is to get away as soon as you can.
Also, one of the things that I kind of remind myself when I had to deal with someone that's super toxic, the loudmouth in the group, right, is I just think, Dunning-Kruger, I don't know if everyone's familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect, but the person that knows the least has the highest confidence about their knowledge, right? And the person that knows the most are the ones that are not saying anything. So they're perceived as ill-confident and unsure of themselves. And in our culture, especially in our industry, where it's like, no, you have to show that strength and, be self-assured and confident and everything else. Like, no, because whether you're in medicine or you're in cybersecurity, things change on a daily basis. What you think is fact is going to change, because data points are always going to be coming in. And when you are that self-assured about what you think that's when Dunning-Kruger comes into effect.
Absolutely. And you're so right in terms of cybersecurity and IT and so on. A new threat will come out practically every second. You have to be that on top of what's going on. What are the key threats? What data breaches have happened? How did that breach occur? And so I'm really be absolutely on top of that all the time. And I think that's what leads to a lot of stress and burnout, particularly with CISOs. And that's another area I've done quite a bit of work on, is helping those in cybersecurity, IT, and particularly CISOs, with their mental health and managing their mental health so that they can avoid burnout, because it's another huge problem, just as imposter syndrome is. Moving on a bit. So how can anybody listening to this right now be part of a support system to help others who are joining the workforce?
I would say listen,
Mm,
listen and really talk to them and give them guidance. And I would hate for women to feel like unwanted in this space because at the end of the day, diversity is what makes cybersecurity better. And we all come from different backgrounds. We all have different perspectives. And hackers, bad guys, they come
mm,
from a very diverse background. Some may not have gone to school for it or training, so they're not cookie cutter. So I would say really listen and give direction and kind of just say, hey, it's not you, but if you feel insecure about this, how do we fix that? And really identify someone's strengths and weaknesses. It's like, hey, I found that you are really good at X, or you're really passionate about Y. So let's see how we can create a path, a career path for you to reach that goal of what you're interested in and staying in the industry, or maybe even leave the industry. But let's kind of explore what the options are because you know for me, I would love to get into a position where I can marry like my previous life in biotech with high tech and security. So now that there's a new FDA requirement for providing security on implants and devices, medical devices, I think it would be a great opportunity to explore that and have that as an extra vertical, an extra category for us to pursue. And just being on top of it, like you and I said, is being aware, but also knowing what you're interested in.
mm.
For me, that's my interest. If I'm interested in it, I'm going to want to learn about it. If I'm going to want to learn about it, I'm going to be staying up at 2 o'clock in the morning, Googling and reading up documents and planning and everything else. But if your heart's not in it, you're not going to be investing the time and you're not going to be interested. It's like giving a book to someone that on a topic that they're not interested in, that book is going to collect dust. But if they're interested in something, really nurture that and really give them a path to really be accepted and going towards that goal.
Absolutely. Um, I wonder if you could perhaps share a little bit about your own experience on imposter syndrome and from your own perspective, and perhaps any specific incidences where it might have come into play a little bit for you.
Yeah, I would say that when I first joined, and I was the only female in a group of 11 men. And I came in, I remember the first day where there was a whiteboard with all these major accounts. And keep in mind, I was a newbie, in this industry. And I looked at the board and he's like, and my VP says, like, you see that list? I go, yeah. It's like, you can have any account that's not on the wall. And all the accounts were taken, like Dell, HP, IBM, all the names that everyone knows, right? And I'm sitting there, it's like, and keep in mind, I went in wanting to be a coder because my educational background, I've coded for my professors, and my first entry into tech was I was a project manager, so I was coding for Hewlett Packard. And I sat there, it's like, well, I went in for an interview and they said, you're going to be great as a business development person. And I'm like, I don't even know what that is. So I was pushed into a role based on personality, but yet everything was picked over and I didn't know what I was doing. And I felt really, really lost. I felt extremely intimidated because I need to find scraps in an industry that I was new at. So, I found some really great allies in the organization and really helped in to really train me. One of my really good friends, Sam Curry, actually was working with me at the time. He's like, pick a topic, any topic, and we'll go through it on a whiteboard and explain it to you. So I learned about, PKI, I learned about firewalls, I learned about antivirus, I learned about all these different technologies because someone took the time to explain it to me because no one else wanted to learn it. And by setting that foundation, I was able to gain that confidence to feel like, well, maybe I do belong. And I was doing a lot of really great deals. And, I knew I got into the USB storage space before everyone else did, because I was following the Japan market because I knew that they were 5 years ahead of the US market. So just things that I was just uncovering in terms of little nuggets of information and guidance, I was able to really create a secondary market that was not the obvious, because like the top tier ones with all the major laptop companies were already taken. So I went after motherboards. I went after like white labels and everything else, because it's still a big chunk of the industry that no one was pursuing. And I look back now and I look at all the other companies, antivirus companies and firewall companies, and they're going after those companies still, decades later. So it made me feel good knowing that I did something and I went after something that was a completely green market that no one ever thought about.
That's absolutely fantastic. And it just goes to show how it can come into play and how you can manage it as well. And that's one of the key things that I always say is I don't think it's something that ever goes away, but I think you learn to manage it, to sort of quash it a bit more, and sort of think to yourself in your mind, no, I do bring value, and I can, do this, and I do bring a lot to the table. So that's something I always say is it's always more about managing, as opposed to it goes away completely, because for me that's something that's never happened.
Yeah.
Final question as we come to the end of this session, but if we forget everything that you've said in the last half an hour or so, what's the one piece of advice that you would like to give to our audience? What would your last word be?
Don't be stagnant and take control of your life. I mean, I feel that that was the mistake that I had made in the beginning, where I was reliant on someone to give me direction and give me tools and give me knowledge. Don't do that. Take control of your life, how you invest in yourself at the end of the day, whether it's going to be part of your career path during your 40 hours a week, or something that is ancillary, something that you want to do for fun outside of work. Invest in yourself, find that work-life balance. Or if you're super lucky, that work-life balance is the joy that you find during the day is your job. But if you find out what that is, go for it. Find mentors, find support people, find people in your network that can get you to the goals that you want to reach.
That is such good advice to end this session on, Dianna. Thank you so much for joining us on this year's International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day, and for sharing your insights. We have one more event coming up within the next half an hour, and that's from Sandy Strickner, who's going to be talking about inner critic to inner coach. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Dianna, for joining us. And we'll see you again in about half an hour. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
Bye-bye.
Bye.